At first I, of course, asked why. Because this wasn't the first bad thing that had ever happened in my life. I've been an abused kid, a homeless teen. I grew up in a broken home. I've been single, married, and divorced. I've been in the military, been civilian. I've been a little bit of everything. And I had a foster kid as well. So this is just one more thing, and you think there's some kind of limit. Like, you're only supposed to experience one really bad thing in your life, and that's your obstacle in life. But no, this was just one more thing, and it seemed like a pretty big thing. But just like a reed bends in the wind and a tree snaps in half and dies, you have to become flexible to survive everything. And you would think that maybe God is angry with you, or you're doing something bad and you are being corrected. But that's never the case. I think Job and Jesus would have something to say about that. No, this is not punishment. This is just one more thing. This is God's way of putting me on his path, not my own. I grew up with my own plans, and they were worthy goals. I was in the Marine Corps. I was combat motion media specialist, and that was going to be my ticket to be a director. That's what I had always dreamed to be. But illness, knocked that aside. I had chronic migraines, really chronic migraines. Then I thought, well, if I can't do that because of illness, maybe I can be a paramedic or work as a translator in the hospital or work with mentally challenged adults. But each plan I made fell through. I was making worthy goals, yes, but they were not what God had in store for me. That's not what he had planned for me. And I realized that I had no control over my life. In fact, I never did from the beginning. No one does. You think you do, but you're not in control. So I gave up control. I handed my life over to God.
See, now this is the part that confuses me, because most people, a lot of people, when something bad happens, and I'll bet all of us can attest to this, when something bad happens, one of the first things you do, if you even believe that there's a God, is you start shaking your fist at him, right? How could you let this happen to me? I'm a good person. I've been a good person. I've tried to be kind to people. I've never hurt anyone. I've never broken the law. Why in the world would you let this happen to me? And a lot of people feel that because they've been dealt a bad hand or had a hardship or a difficulty, that that's some kind of permission to blame God and opt out, and it ruins any relationship with God. They blame him, and instead of drawing closer to him, it actually causes them to shove him away. And I'm sure you probably have all spoken to somebody in your lives, or maybe you're one of them, who something happened in your life and it completely polarized you against God, faith, church, Christians, Jesus, any of that, prayer, any of it. Throw it all out the window because of what has happened, what God let happen to me. What was your choice and why in that situation?
When you meet old people, there's only two kinds. There's the sweet and the bitter. There is no in between. Every time...
That's good. That's really good.
Every time you're faced with an obstacle, you are faced with a choice. You're faced with a question. How do I respond to this? This question directly translates down the road to, who will I be? And a lot of people, when bad things happen to them, think they're owed. The world owes them, and people that meet them later on will pay that awful cost. But Jesus did not climb down from that cross and shake his fist saying, you owe me. We're not owed anything. In fact, actually, I have a quote that's pretty good. Jesus has chosen, even in a resurrected, otherwise perfect body, to retain for the benefit of his disciples the wounds in his hands and in his feet and in his side. Signs, if you will, that painful things happen even to the pure and perfect. Signs, if you will, that pain in this world is not evidence that God doesn't love you. Signs, if you will, that problems will pass and happiness can be ours. God tries those whom he loves. And it's never a punishment. That's not how God works. He doesn't work by stricken you with an illness or something. That's just not how it works.
It reminds me of that story, the story in the scripture, remember? Where a sick man was brought to Jesus and the disciples, and what was the first thing the disciples said? They said, "What did this guy do that he's being punished by being sick?" Remember this?
Or his parents.
They just assumed that he must have done something wrong, or his parents did something wrong for him to be stricken with this illness. And what did Jesus say? Do you remember? He said he didn't do anything. Do you know?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
I can't vote though.
Okay, go ahead. Come close. Now, what was his, in summary, what did Jesus say? Why was this man ill?
He wasn't ill because of anything he had done or his parents had done. He was ill for the benefit to teach others. That God's glory could be displayed through him. Not, he hadn't been a bad boy. His parents hadn't been bad, and so he was stricken with this illness. So tell them, if you would, as you did tell me last year, what did this life-threatening illness, tumor, do to your relationship with God? Where were you before this extremely bad thing happened, and where are you now? I was close to God before, but I'm ever so much more closer now. Because the more suffering you undergo, and if you make the right choices about it, and you have the right attitude about it, and you keep your eyes and your heart and your mind on spiritual, eternal matters, you become more like he whom the Father sent. You are more like him. You have experienced life like he has experienced it. You are more on his level. You have a more intimate relationship with him because you are walking side by side with him the entire way. Never are you ever alone in this. God knows you. He knows where you are, and he knows the best path for you, and he will walk with you every single step of the way, down the entire way. And you just have to realize that these little things, they're not coincidences that you're experiencing. These little happenstances that, you've experienced some kind of amazing spiritual fire if you look for it and you accept it for what it is and not try to excuse it as something else entirely, something mundane. People entering your life is the biggest thing. Look to see what you can offer other people. See what they are offering you. See what you can exchange, and in this, you can both grow spiritually.
How does God comfort you when you, and I can only assume, and I don't know, but I would assume that occasionally you lie in bed at night as you're drifting off to sleep and you're contemplating the day, or contemplating your life, or contemplating tomorrow, and forgive me, but contemplating if there will be a tomorrow. How does God comfort you, and what does he say to you? What do you hear in your spirit from him?
When I'm brought really low, when I'm in intense pain and intense suffering, and no medication can alleviate it, and there is no treatment for it, and I have nothing to do but wait it out, even if it will not end, I pray to God, and instead of just praying for relief, for it to go away, I pray that it will be taken from me, because everything I'm experiencing is what Jesus is experiencing at that moment. He experiences every iota of pain you feel. He experiences it as you experience it. He doesn't know at the moment that he is God and he can escape from it. He doesn't know that there is an end. He has to experience it exactly as you do, with your thoughts and feelings and knowledge, so that he can better succor his disciples. So I pray instead that it will be relieved from me, so that it will be relieved from him, so that he won't have to suffer so much, because he has suffered too much already. And in that, I feel like a fire inside, a comfort, like he really appreciates the gesture, but we really can't take it away at the moment. But in that, I feel the closeness with him, and I always pray that I'm a tool in his hands, as imperfect as I am, that I can be a tool in his hands and do what he wants and be his mouthpiece when he needs. And in doing that, I'm walking side by side with him, and I can feel the warmth of the Spirit, and I can feel approval and love, especially when I show love to others. When I show love to others, I can feel the love of heaven. Because if heaven could speak one word down to earth, it would be love. That is the biggest message they could ever send. That is the most important lesson you could ever learn in life to begin with, is love. Love other people. Just love them. It doesn't matter if it's returned. Just love them. There's no love given away to no end, because it will come back one way or another. And even if you give it to someone who does not give it back, they will remember that love, and someday down the road they may be able to give that love to someone else. It will ripple out, like if you touch your finger in a pond, it'll ripple out to places you can't even imagine.
So, first of all, thank you so much for sharing with everybody. And in summary, what do you want these people to remember about you? If you could sum up, if you move away and they don't see you at a convention or whatever, they remember that Sunny girl, Sunny, who talked in that service in Anime Week in Atlanta. What do you want them to remember about you?
Everyone is a bird in a cage. Sometimes that cage will get chipped, maybe rusted. Sometimes people will come along and spread filth on your cage. It may get bent and broken, but during this time you have to remember to sing. Someday that cage will break open, and the bird will be able to fly free and join its own kind in the skies. But if it has not sung, it will not remember that it was a bird, and it will not remember that it could ever fly. So sing. It doesn't matter what happens on the outside. No matter what happens to my body, it's just the cage. The bird inside is pure, undefiled, healthy, and vibrant. And when the cage breaks, I will be able to fly free and join my own kind in the skies.